Until recently, this was Soviet airspace. And these warplanes were the foundation of the USSR's enormous protective shield. There is a glamour about this plane, but the true workhorse of the Russian Air Force is the Su-25, often known in the West by its NATO designation, the Frogfoot. This snub-nosed attack plane is simple, sturdy, fast, and highly maneuverable. The Su-25 is the Russian fighter pilot's plane of choice.
As any pilot, every pilot loves his plane. I love my plane because I flew it over 15 years. You know, I want to tell you a story. We were flying planes to deliver them to the army of one of the friendly countries. When we arrived, one of the pilots stepped out of his plane and kissed it. This is how we expressed our love of the plane, which gave us so many opportunities and saved our lives so many times. That's why we love them so much.
You American pilots fell in love with this plane too. When the Blue Angels visited us and we flew together, we flew F-18s with your pilots. And they flew MiG-29s, Su-27s. I invited them to try the Su-25. Most of them looked at the plane suspiciously. They didn't want to try it. Then we pushed one of their pilots into the plane. When he tried flying it, he liked it very much. He didn't expect this performance from this plane. After that, the American pilots were standing in line to fly it.
I've flown it. And I was very impressed. I was the first Western pilot to fly the airplane. And the reason? Nobody else wanted to fly it. That's it. It's an old Su-25. Same thing about, oh, it's an old A-10. Who wants to fly that? Now, there's something unique in our country about the A-10. It has an institutional hatred. People don't like the A-10. Let's get rid of the A-10. Because it's a low-tech box. And you don't cram billion-dollar pieces of equipment in it. You cram a man in it with a good gun and some guts and some training, and the airplane survives, just like it did in Desert Storm. The Su-25 is their idea of our A-10. It has a decent 30-millimeter gun, certainly not like the gun in the A-10, but it fires a big round and it'll punch a hole in a tank. It'll carry a lot of weapons on the outside, bombs, rockets. And what's interesting about the Su-25 is, once you punch everything off of it, it will go over Mach 1. The A-10 doesn't even come close. It slows down and stops right around 400 knots. Whereas the Su-25 will go straight through the speed of sound, and it'll turn on a dime at great acceleration.
Our planes can work in any weather condition. Our operating parameters are from +50, +60 degrees centigrade in the shade to -80, -60 degrees centigrade. This is a wide range of parameters from negative to positive because of the territory of Russia is huge and climate is very different and difficult. Our planes and helicopters are designed to work in any region.
Perhaps it's appropriate for a plane nicknamed Frogfoot to have such an unassuming and decidedly unglamorous home. This is the flight line at Lipetsk Air Base, in the wind-swept steppes of central Russia. By Western standards, it appears to be suffering from years of neglect and disrepair. Lipetsk is actually not much different from its days as an important Soviet airbase.
The Russians never took great care with their facilities. Crumbling concrete was a standard because Russian concrete was of very poor quality. So it would decay on its own, and the rubble would be pushed aside. Since 1991, that reality has been amplified many times over. Now everything is pretty much in a state of rubble. Grass grows everywhere. Our machines aren't like that at all. Ours could not take anything along those lines to speak of, whereas theirs could. Russian equipment was made to operate in those conditions. It was made to operate in crumbling concrete, mud, sand, dirt, all kinds of things that don't starve the machinery of air or fuel.
And this was to become self-evident in the disastrous Afghan war. Historically, Russian aviation design has differed greatly from its US counterpart. It's often been said that American aviation designers go overboard, sacrificing simplicity for the sake of unneeded high-tech extras. Russian planes reflect Soviet military design policy, both practical and unfussy. Russian airplanes are uncluttered. In this Air Force, the emphasis is on sheer weight of numbers. The intent is to overwhelm the enemy, often at the cost of many pilots. Those who survive will most likely fly the Su-25. Like the US Air Force A-10, the Su-25 cockpit is a titanium strongbox. A barrage of 20mm gun rounds barely dents the flying tank's protective shield. Pilot and plane often escape unscathed.
The Su-25 belongs to ground attack aviation. It is a modern flying tank.
We find out quickly, once we start a war, we need that kind of in-the-face, knife-fighting type of airplane that will support the guy on the ground quickly, easily, and close. You got to get in close to support somebody. You don't stand off at 20 miles and support the guys on the front line. You got to get in there with a gun and some skill and maybe some night vision goggles and learn how to mix it up at the FIBA, at the forward edge of the battle area. That's what the Su-25 does. And that's why Frontal Aviation will never get rid of it as long as they've got some money. It's a simple airplane. It's got 2 MiG-21 engines in it. Reliable, been around for a long time. They can throw them away like cordwood and put more of them in. You can belly it in and jack it up, do a few repairs, and fly it off. It is a rugged, rugged airplane.
(1979). War breaks out on the Soviet southern border. This rugged terrain will become the flying tank's proving ground. Until now, the Su-25 was an untested prototype. The place is Afghanistan. Soviet troops invade on December the 27th, 1979. For 25 years, the Soviets poured foreign aid into Afghanistan. Then the help came in the form of military might. The Kremlin employed its usual strategy, deploying 100,000 troops and almost 5,000 advisors. The Soviets had a severe handicap. They had long trained for World War III against NATO troops on the open plains of Central Europe. By April 1980, it was soon becoming obvious that the troops would need more air support if they had any chance of gaining ground. Enter the Su-25.
I was with a colleague of mine, a cameraman, and